Welcome to episode 23 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast for sharing tips, apps, and gear for iPhone and iPad, along with related technologies that gets us going using iOS in a fun, productive, and meaningful way. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and joining me as always is Melissa Davis. How are you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Doing great. It's been a couple weeks. We're going to get back in gear here and talk about all kinds of great stuff that's been happening in the Apple world. What else has been going on with you in the Apple world? I could ask you.
Oh, I've actually been quite busy helping clients, my clients, and other people's customers, Apple's customers in particular, get their devices set up. Excitedly, I just got to handle an iPhone 10, and I'm getting one next time they come around. I got bit. I can totally see why you like that. I mean, yes. I do love my 8 Plus, and we'll talk about how my life has been living with that in a little while. But yeah, handling that 10, that form factor is really nice. After wielding this 8 Plus for a while, I'm looking forward to going back to that in the coming years.
Yeah. I mean, by that time, probably the 10 Plus will be out, or who knows what they're going to call it. We'll talk a little bit about that with the Worldwide Developers Conference coming up. It is a great phone. I'll definitely tell you that. And yeah, you see firsthand what the differences are. So let's dig right into the news. We got about a couple articles here I wanted to touch upon. I go a little out of order what we have in our show notes here. The one I wanted to talk about first was the event that Apple announced on March 27th, which actually is going to be here in Chicago.
Cool.
And it's focusing on creative new ideas for teachers and students. I thought you'd be interested in this.
I wish I could attend something like that. I would just love that. I'd have so much fun.
A lot of hinting of what the invitation is. Are they going to announce anything? Or they've been talking about cheaper MacBooks and iPads. People are kind of playing into the graphic. Or maybe there's going to be a new pencil for the iPad. Hard to say.
Yeah, based on the graphic. I mean, we always try to read stuff into whenever these announcements come out to the media. Like, are there clues? Are there Easter eggs in the graphic that we can surmise what's going to go on? And it's a beautiful graphic, and it kind of showcases what you could do with the pencil, where it's got those beautiful lines. Yep. It's a beautiful line drawing. I can just I love calligraphy and stuff like that. I could just watch that stuff for hours. So it's going to be a fly on the wall.
It's going to be held at one of the larger high schools in Chicago Public Schools. It's Lane Tech High School, and that's quite a place. It's going to be held there, and anybody who was invited gets to go there. Of course, the press will probably be there as well. Chicago's Board of Education actually recently added a computer science as a graduate requirement for all public schools, so that's kind of a fitting pair for them doing that. So. Some reports from some of the rumor sites were saying that potentially they're claiming that maybe there'll be finally a successor to the MacBook Air. I won't talk much here on that, but also Apple does sell an outdated entry-level model, which is $999, so they were talking about that. But also they're rumoring relates to potentially that there will be a classroom version of the iPad, and they can reduce the price. The iPad, and maybe an entry-level 9.7-inch, which would be around $259. Hard to say if that would be offered to the consumer or not, or if that would just be for education. But there, of course, always rumors. You can't really hold to those rumors when these things are discussed.
No, we can dream, can't we?
Yeah. But I mean, I think it would be smart on Apple's part, especially at the end. Education is starting to really hunker down on budgets. I mean, it's
starting to. It's been for so long.
For a long time.
That's the problem, really. Yeah. I mean, I can remember do you remember the old eMac computers? Those big white.
Yeah, my wife had one.
I remember when I was working in education back when you could order those in a 5-pack. Right. There was special, I don't remember what the number pricing was, but I remember it wasn't my direct job, but I was friends with people who it was their job to spec out computers and hardware and things like that to be outfitted in schools, and you could get like a package kind of price on a pack of computers. And all this is just to say that, I mean, Apple used to have a really good hold on the education market way back when. I mean, even when you and when I was a kid, I mean, Apple was starting to get into classrooms. I mean,
I should say I'm not that far ahead of you, I should say.
Yeah, there's about a decade there, so not quite. Not quite. But I remember, Apple being in the education space, and myself and some of my peers, we'd have fond memories of, playing Oregon Trail on a Mac and the floppies and, just different things that we did on an Apple computer. And it was like that for a long, long time, where Apple really had kind of a stronghold on the education market. And then I think it was probably a combination of either maybe leadership at Apple, I'm not exactly sure what, but they lost their grip once things like HP started coming in and offering a lot more, more budget-friendly machines. And then I think there's just, and without getting too political or anything, but I think there's been a political shift. I think there's just been a shift in funding. Our schools and education market has just been defunded over the years, over the last, 2 decades. It's just, you didn't used to, it's not like we didn't worry about funding. And I remember, when I worked in education, and this is about a decade ago, because I was, it was just before I started my family. Mm-hmm. I remember, there was a bit of a struggle trying to order inkjet cartridges, or not inkjet cartridges, but toner cartridges for, laser writers and things like that. And I did work in a school that was an Apple school. Everything was Apple. And so looking back now, I feel like I was extremely privileged to work in a district that was all Apple, because now my kids go to schools and I've seen other schools, locally and just in our area. Arizona's a really poor example because we're like near the bottom, but it's all, outfitted with, and it's not even just that it's Windows or PCs, it's really cobbled together. And so there's just not the funding for it. There's just not the budget for it, except in the more wealthier districts. And even those are going the way of Chromebooks because the education funding has been so stripped. So I really hope that Apple's going to be able to compete in this space, because it's really important to get into the educational space, and people are going to, this is kind of an icky feeling for some people, but it really is about, branding and getting the kids using these devices. This is where they're going to kind of build their affinity for products and their taste for hardware and software and the things that can be done. And right now, for example, my kids are using Chromebooks, but my gosh, there's not really much to experience. They use their Microsoft 365 products. They use Chrome operating system. It's all online. But that's all they're really doing. And I'm longing for more. There's just so much that I used to be able to do with kids in an Apple lab. And I look at our little labs and it's all Chromebooks, and it's just like, it's kind of cut down, and there's just not really much it's just not very desirable. So I long for the days of Apple being in education, and I really hope that they're making a comeback.
Well, I think they are, and they're calling this "Let's take a field trip." So they wouldn't just do this in picking Chicago of all the places. It's a very tech-minded city, as well as it's got a lot of great support in the education market. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Just like any of the
setting the stage and setting an example to follow. Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So next story I caught my eye was also which we're linked in the show notes to Tidbits. Our friend Adam Engst and his crew. It was a great article. Apple did acquire a company called Texture, which is a digital magazine service. I've used it before. It's a little pricey. You spend $10 a month for it, and it was a single monthly fee. And they offered something like 200 different titles that are out there. Sometimes you look at this list that's on the site. It's like I didn't even heard of some of these magazines. So, but some of the big ones are out there. So I think what Apple's trying to do is they're just trying to get themselves narrowed down into the news market, and that's what Eddie Q was quoted as saying, is they're committed to quality journalism and from trusted sources. And there's a lot of good articles, a lot of these magazines out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. A lot of people, we've talked about this before, where you can go to your local library, and we've talked about things with using Zenio, which RB Digital, which is the books company, and you can go to your public library's website and be able to get those magazines for free. So be interesting to see.
That reminds me, I got to add our RB Digital app to our show notes here. They just did update it, and before we started recording, I poked around in it, and it is better. Yeah, it is a lot better. Have you used it?
I've used the old one. I have not seen it since I didn't realize they did that as well. So So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Apple does with this. Some people are concerned that maybe they'll kind of just meld it right into the Apple News web app, and then this will go away. And that's kind of the trend of what Apple's done when they buy companies.
You think the News app will cannibalize it somehow?
It's possible. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be tapping in a lot of these resources, but who knows? They may still keep it as a separate entity and continue on.
What did we used to have? Newsstand? Didn't they try this before with Newsstand, and it kind of failed miserably?
Newsstand was merged, but they moved it over to Apple News. I mean, Apple News, it's not a bad app. I mean, and we could talk about this other in the future, but Flipboard and a lot of other news type apps that are out there aggregate the news and make it easier to find things and read things. I use. There's a site out there called Mac Hash that I like to use that trends on all the Apple news, and there's lots of others that are out there. But no, I think. Well,
they're news readers, though. I mean, they take like a blog post a series of blog posts and journalistic kind of blogs and kind of stream them together in an RSS feed, right?
Yeah, but the Apple News does more. They go to the obvious sources like New York Times, Washington Post, Newsweek, those kind of magazines and newspapers. So I mean, I think that's really what they were trying to do is tap into this. Into this market, because there's some big titles in texture like Forbes and National Geographic, Time Magazine, just to name a few. So there are some big titles in here that provide a lot of news. So I think that's what Apple's trying to do is they're just looking to bring more content to the news app. Is probably what's going to end up happening.
Well, I agree that they're going to try to bring more news to us especially from trusted, vetted, verifiable sources. Right. I did read a little bit in one of the articles that it could be a perceivable goal to kind of cut down on things like fake news and stuff like that. And when I read that, I thought, I really do miss paging through magazines, like actual magazines. I mean, Apple has its Apple Books, or I think they're just calling it Books now, the bookstore. So it's conceivable that they could come out with an app that's just called magazines. They tried to do this with Newsstand. I think Newsstand was actually their attempt at trying to put together some kind of a magazine. And I want to specify that, magazine is different from just like a blog or any kind of like an online news source. A magazine is more of like, page turns and full spreads and designed pages to, move the reader through. And I have an affinity for this because I used to work in the printing industry and I used to work in designing magazines. So, I really do miss that. I really do miss actual magazine layout and design. And I'd be excited if that is what Apple's trying to do. If they're trying to bring back actual page spreads and designing text and news to flow to capture the reader's attention, and also with the time and energy and elegance and art that's put into it to make it a more trusted source of information instead of just reading blogs here and there. Yeah, I'm a blogger. I don't want to totally water it down. And I know that there's a lot of, work and journalistic integrity that goes into blogs. I'm not trying to poo-poo that. But I wonder if, they're trying to get us back into actually paging through magazines again.
Yeah, I don't. I would say in the interim, no. I'm quoting on the article here is Eddie Q was interviewed at a South by Southwest conference I think it was last week, and he says that Apple plans to integrate the Texters content into Apple News, and part of the goal. So
it's definitely a plan to put it into news.
Yeah, part of the goal is to present stories to readers while avoiding the concerns of fake news. Interesting. He noted a year ago that Apple News users followed an average of 4 publications, and now that's up to 20. So this could increase it even more. So maybe that a lot of it was what their goal is. They wanted looking for quality journalism. Is what it says in the article. So I think that's where it's going to go, at least in the beginning. They have no details on what they intend to do with texture. I mean, like I said, they could just meld it in and say goodbye. I hope not. I've seen them doing that before, but it's a good service if you like to read a lot of these different magazines. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Also, let's go back on the iOS view here. iOS 11.3, the developer beta 6, it just got released about 2 days ago, actually on St. Patrick's Day, which is yesterday as we record this. And again, there's more bugs and fixes they're looking to iron out. The big focus really is going to be the battery health monitoring. I've been testing that on one of my devices, and it's pretty cool to be able to see that it says your battery is in good health. And also it's going to tells you right away if your battery has to be replaced. And we talked about that before, but that whole thing. They're probably going to add more emoji characters. I don't know if you got to play with that at all with the iPhone 10 when you.
No, didn't get that far. It wasn't really a priority, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's not two super 100% priorities in there. And then they're adding things like business chat in messages to allow for businesses to be able to have an internal chat as opposed to just using the public iMessages, which will be interesting. So but that's out. It's beta 6. I'm intending to think that this is going to be coming out very soon because again, the last beta I think they did 9 of them before they released it. So we'll see. See what happens. So, and then they announced earlier this past week that the Worldwide Developers Conference is going to be on June 4th through the 8th in San Jose, like it was last year. And of course, that's a big thing. And of course, probably will unveil new versions of iOS, by iOS 10, Mac OS 10.14, watch OS 5, tvOS 12. And always that conference is always focused on software. So that's probably what you'll see a lot of. So like I said, from the announcement, from the field trip they're going to have on the 27th, I'm hoping they announce some things during that session, maybe a little bit. But the Worldwide Developers Conference usually has a lot of other things discussed, more specifically software. But they might have a few hardware tricks up their sleeve too. So that's coming up. That, of course, is not easy to get into. You have to be a developer, and it's about $1,600 as a ticket, and you have to be in the lottery, be able to pit.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lottery,
so you can't just walk up and say, "Hey, I want to join it." So another article caught my eye was Apple Music. Apple Music is now growing at a record pace with 2 million subscribers that were just added in the last 5 weeks. And Mac Rumors had a great article talking about where Apple Music has gone from when it started in October 2015, which had about 6.5 million subscribers at the start. It's at almost 38 million subscribers. So I think it's really growing at a pretty fast pace here. And it's on the heel. It's getting close to what Spotify's doing. So Apple Music. So I'm a subscriber. And I like it. And I enjoy it. The music it works real well for me. But it all depends on what people want as far as content goes. So.
Well, and the Apple HomePod will probably contribute to that if it hasn't already.
A little bit. I don't think very much. I mean, the HomePod, as we talked about last episode, yeah, it's not. And I'm not alone in this view. I mean, I had discussions during my iPhone special interest group earlier this week for the user group, and a lot of people. I talked about the same thing we talked about last episode, and it was a lot of people say, yeah, you got to be really. If you're an audiophile, like we had some folk, one of our members is very much an audiophile, and yeah, he's not interested in it as much. But others who are just basic music listeners, if it's something entry level, like I said, then it's great. But you got to have Apple Music in order to be able to really utilize that device so far. But we talked about that already. But it's I like it. I think it's going to continue to grow, and we'll see what happens as far as that goes. So that was some of the news that caught my eye. But you wanted to talk about a topic. This episode is about wearable devices.
Yeah, we are wearable now. It's getting easier and easier to, just not to touch a little bit on the HomePod, but it's getting easier and easier to listen to music and podcasts from other sources than just like the old days of carrying an iPod around. Now it's on your phone. Your phone has become an iPod. But lately I've been dabbling in listening to podcasts from my Apple Watch. And there's, basically 2 different ways to do that now. You either are basically streaming, I guess, would that be the right word? Streaming or you're somehow connecting, the audio that's coming out of your iPhone is now controllable. There's a screen that says now playing. Yep. And I discovered this the hard way. I actually had, I guess one day I was troubleshooting something and I just decided that I was going to, it says remove. If you tap and then swipe on the screen, you can remove the screen, much like you can dismiss the pages or the screens on your iPhone in multitasking mode. And so I decided to get rid of that now playing screen just to see what would happen. And it disappeared and I couldn't get it back. And so I figured it out. So the tip is that if that screen does go away while you're trying to control podcasts from your screen. Simply just playing, I don't think just simply playing a podcast will do it. It might, but you have to open up the music app, or it might work with the podcast app, but if you haven't installed that, it might not. But it has to be playing some kind of media from your iPhone first, and then it will show back up again, and then you can start navigating it again.
My Apple Watch, if I'm playing any media online, it comes up. If I use Downcast as my podcast app, and anytime I'm playing a podcast from there, it comes up. So it does come across anytime you have any media. I've got the Series 3, so I don't know if it's a little different for you of the Series 2.
Yeah, for some reason I couldn't get it to initiate until I opened something up in music and started playing it. So I had dismissed it on my watch, and then I went back and I started playing a podcast from, say, Castro or any of the podcatcher apps, and that screen was gone. I couldn't get to the now playing screen. So I actually had to go and open up Apple Music or the music app and play a song from there, and then it would show up. That's how I got it back. So that's just one way of doing it. Yeah,
because I was listening to Twit before we started recording, and every time I was using TuneIn, and TuneIn comes as soon as you bring up something on TuneIn, it does show up on your watch too. Same thing with Downcast.
But if you've dismissed it, to get it back on my Series 1, I had to go and open up music. So I couldn't just open up my podcatcher player. It's
possibly might be different on the older version of the watch.
Yeah, I wonder.
I haven't tried.
So don't panic if it disappears or if you've accidentally swiped it. That's the way to get it back in just the basic way. I mean, just open up music and just start playing something and it'll come back. But it's the now playing screen. It's not actually an app, because if you go looking for it in the list of apps on your watch, it won't show up as an app. It's basically just a screen that appears when there's media playing on your phone, so that you can control it from your Apple Watch.
Right.
So that's the screen that we're talking about, but I don't want to refer to it as an app because I don't want you to go looking for it in the list of apps, because it won't be there.
Depends on the app. I mean, if you have Downcast or if you have the Outcast, you're going to talk about a little bit here, that's an app that's installed onto the Apple Watch, and there are some apps that can be installed.
Right, those are apps,
in
but the now playing is just a screen.
Yep, but the thing is, when Downcast comes up, it actually brings up the Downcast app, and I have control of what I can go to the podcast, and I think an Outcast does that too.
Right. So, for example, I use the Castro app. I've talked about that in the past. And Castro, for example, doesn't have an individual Apple Watch app that can be installed. So it relies upon the now playing screen. And there's other podcatcher apps that are the same way, where they don't necessarily have an app that you can install. So things like Downcast and the other apps like that, they have companion Apple Watch apps that can be installed, and then you can use those to interact with your podcasts. So that's just something a little bit different. But that is another way that you can initiate listening to a podcast on your iPhone, and then switch to your Apple Watch. So say, if you're driving, or if you're doing something like, if I'm milling around the house and I want to listen to something, I will set my phone down and I'll have my Bluetooth, earbuds in or something, and I'm walking around the house, and I can, like, say if, one of the kids asks me a question, or say something happens where I need to stop the playback, I can pause it right from my wrist, which is really, really great.
Yep.
So that's what I'm talking about, is being able to navigate. I can rewind, I can fast forward, I can speed it up depending on, what you're looking at. And like I said, the apps for the podcatchers, like Downcast, they have other special features, like you can speed up the
change podcast
voice, or you can switch between podcasts and things like that, which is not something you can really do from the now playing screen.
Right.
So it just kind of, you have to kind of play with it and decide which is going to be the best for you. The now playing screen by default just pops up. Like I said, if you've been, like, now I just keep it. I'm careful now to not dismiss that screen. But that I just keep that handy, and that will come up by default while you're playing some media, and you can interact with that, or you can switch to the different apps on your watch. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about regarding wearable, where, being able to control it from your wrist, is an app called Outcast. And it's relatively new, but they've had several updates to it, and it just keeps getting better and better. You can read that even in the reviews. People are raving about it. And I have to be careful to make sure I'm saying Outcast. A lot of these podcast apps obviously have the word cast in them, so forgive me if I say the wrong one. But this one is called Outcast. It's not Downcast. It's called
like
Outcast.
Down and Out.
Downcast is a different one.
It's down and out.
Yeah. Or out and down, because the out comes first. So, but the thing that's different about this is, yes, there is an app that you start out with on your iPhone, but this is specifically controlled by the Apple Watch. In other words, you download the app for the iPhone to get it onto your watch, but you don't ever actually interact with it on your iPhone at all. That the only time that you ever use it on your iPhone is to install it and get it working on your Apple Watch. And then from there on forward, you only work with it on your Apple Watch.
Right.
And so what this now becomes is it's a podcatcher that's specifically on your Apple Watch, and it uses the hard drive of your Apple Watch to store the podcast medium. So you're downloading the digitized media file, the MP3, directly to the watch. Now, you can do it over cellular, but it's really, really slow. So there's pages. I'll go find the link for that too that kind of walks you through the instructions. But basically, you want to disconnect your, and it's not unpairing. So beware of that, because in some of the instructions that I've read online, people have used the word unpairing, and that's bad.
That is bad.
Do not unpair. You don't want to, I guess it's unpairing. You don't want to unpair your Apple Watch. All you want to do simply is just put it in airplane mode, just to disconnect it from the Bluetooth signal. That's different from pairing. You don't want to unpair it or you'll have to start all over again, right? So you want to somehow, get the Bluetooth turned off so that it's not going through the cellular connection to your iPhone. You want it to force it to go onto Wi-Fi. And that's what the act of disconnecting it from Bluetooth does, is it forces it to connect to Wi-Fi. And then from there, when you go to download the episodes of the podcast you want to listen to, it'll go much, much faster.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was trying it, because I did a podcast demo, I forgot to tell you, and before the show, because you just did yours at your Apple User Group, and I did it at the SIG. So I took some of your notes there and talked about the Outcast app. And I tried downloading it, and it's pretty slow, and you got to keep it active if it's on Bluetooth versus when it's on Wi-Fi.
Yes, and that's the other thing about keeping it active. So this is kind of a pain. This is one of these things where you want to do this kind of sparingly. You want to be very deliberate about which podcast you want to put on there and what episodes. So basically, I would look through some episodes and say, okay, well, I know I want to listen to, say, maybe you were listening to a show that had a series like S-Town or Serial, one of those. Say, for example, I think S-Town, I want to say, has 7 episodes. So you might want to download maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 of those episodes on your watch. I mean, it would probably fit all 7 episodes if you don't have that many apps on your watch. But say you knew that you were going to go for a walk, or you knew you were going to go do something around the house or something, that you were going to devote your time to listening to those episodes, then just download those episodes, because you got to be really picky and choosy, because you got to sit there, you got to download the episode, and you have to keep the watch awake. So that means you have to keep looking at it. That means you have to keep poking it. You kind of have to babysit it. So, and in that time that you're downloading, if you're downloading a lot of episodes, if you go for the whole series and download all 7 of those episodes of that series, then you're going to be sitting there for quite a while. And you really can't do a whole lot else. I mean, you might be able to multitask a little bit, but you've got to keep making sure that the face is, woken up and that it's on, and monitor the download. So I don't know, maybe that'll be an update for the future, that it'll do it in the background, maybe while the watch is, I don't know, in standby mode or something.
Could be an OS limitation too.
Yeah, very well could be. It probably is. So that's a downside of it. I mean, like I said, it depends on how much you really want to do this. But let me tell you, it is very liberating. It is, for me, my opinion is that it is worth the time that it takes to download the episodes. Like I said, just be picky or choosy. I picked maybe 3 episodes that I wanted to just keep on my watch, to have that if I'm ever in a situation, well, I am quite frequently in a situation, like say I want to get stuff done in the kitchen, or I'm milling around the house and I don't want to have to keep taking my phone from room to room to room, then I will make sure that I download those episodes, plug in my Bluetooth earphone in my ear, and I can just go. And I don't have to worry about picking up the phone because I went into a room where there was a wall that cut off the signal. So it's very liberating to just be able to have it on watch. My good friend Elisa from my other podcast, she goes and does workouts at the gym, and she loves it because she's able to just stash her phone in the locker and just have the podcast playing from her watch. So it is a really liberating feeling. But like I said, it comes with a cost. And that cost is that you have to sit down and babysit the downloads until you get everything onto the watch that you want on there by keeping it awake. And then you need to do, you kind of need to do some prep work as far as that's concerned, because you have to know that when you do that, it's going to drain your watch battery.
Right.
And so you're going to want to, like, let's say you're going to be working out at the gym and you want to do this. Well, the night before, you should get your podcast downloaded to your watch and then charge your watch up. You don't want to be downloading it and then going and working out and then, oh, gee, why is my battery at 10%? Yeah. So, so it's just, like I said, it's an investment of time. It takes, it has a cost involved as far as your time is concerned. But once you do get it on there, I feel like it's worth it to have that liberation of not having to carry your phone with you.
For those of you who run, I mean, I have friends that are very avid runners. So I think this would be a good app for that person, only because you could download the podcast. Of course, you're going to download In Touch with iOS, right? And
yeah, exactly. We're wearable now.
That's right.
You can wear us and listen to us.
You can listen to that, and you can. I mean, most runners, I would think, they still want to have their phone with them, only because for emergencies. But if you have the cellular watch, you might be able you get away with not having the phone with you. But yeah, it definitely was. I found it. I agree with you. It was kind of liberating. You think, wow, this is great. I can finally use my watch and not have to have the phone attached to me to listen to something. So.
Yep. So I've really been enjoying that. Now there are switch back to wearing your phone again. There are times where, of course, I don't have the time to invest and I just want to listen to my podcasts. I just want to stream them and I'm not going to invest the time to sit there and make sure they're all downloaded on my watch. And I just want to listen to them from my phone like normal. So we talked a little bit about, the iPhone 10 and how pocketable that is and how I kind of missed that form factor. But living life with my iPhone 8 Plus, I have found ways, like kind of a little bit of a hack to try to deal with that. Since I can't really just shove my iPhone 8 Plus into my pocket anymore, I do miss that. And I think I've talked in the past about the ring that I put on the back of it. And I love that. That is such a game changer for me, being able to do that. But there's another hack that I did, and I attached a lanyard to it. And it basically just involves either finding a lanyard or making a lanyard or something that has, ends on it. And basically all you have to do is get the type of iPhone case that has the speaker holes cut out on the bottom. So there's a speaker hole on the left and a speaker hole on the right. And this is nice. You can do this now with this model phone, whereas in the past, I think there just used to be, because remember when we used to have the headphone jack, that was on one side and then the speaker grill was on the other. So now it's uniform. You've got a speaker hole on the left, a speaker hole on the right, and then a cutout for the lightning port to plug your cable in. And so what I did was I braided together some like a stretchy kind of like a silicone type of material. And I braided together a lanyard. I, kind of measured it so that it's sort of like a purse strap almost. And then it like a satchel that goes over your shoulder. And I tied the ends of it. I threaded it through the holes in the bottom of the case. And I made a series of knots. So it's really, really secure. And I did it in such a way so that basically the phone hangs upside down. So it hangs when I put it over my shoulder, it hangs down by my hip, kind of like almost like a purse or a satchel or something would, and it hangs upside down. And the reason why that's important is because when you want to snap a picture or when you look at your phone, when you pick it up, it's right side up. So when you pick the phone up, the camera is in the proper orientation.
Right.
So you can just snap a picture. So I have found that is really, really handy. And I usually kind of just sling it over my shoulder and then I push it to my back. And then that way I'm able to wear the phone around the house and I'm hands free and I can listen to my podcasts and kind of mill around the house. So that's been really helpful. And I've started, people are starting to see this out in the wild and they're complimenting me, like, oh, where did you get that? Like, oh, I made it.
Awesome. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a wearable world out there. And
it sure is.
And I definitely think that the watch is going to continue to evolve in the wearable market. So
So we should talk about earpieces.
Yeah, earpieces.
Because
I was going to say.
in order to be able to wear these devices, whether it's an iPhone or an Apple Watch, you're going to need something to put into your ear to wear. Yep. And so we have a couple of recommendations here. I'm going to talk about the first one. We've talked about them before, but I really think we just need to mention them again, and that's sleep phones. You may have remembered in some of our earlier podcast episodes, we talked about sleep phones. Dave and I were bemoaning like not having something to be able to wear on planes or something to be able to take a nap with. And if anybody knows me, I suffer from insomnia, and these sleep phones have really, really helped me with that. I plug them in and I'm able to listen to podcasts or music or some of my videos and things like that. You can even pair these things to an 4th gen Apple TV, so you don't have to disturb your partner while they're sleeping and you're trying to watch TV. Sleep phones are basically, if you haven't heard about them before, they're like a stretchy band that goes around your head. You wear them around your head, and for runners or joggers, people, they hold your hair back, or it's like a sweatband almost. And then there's very flat speakers that are on either side. And what's really great about them is the bands, they're washable, and everything is sewed together with a Velcro piece in the middle, and you just split the Velcro apart and you can pull the speakers out of it, and you can toss the band in the washing machine and then put them back together, and they just slide in there. And they're wireless, and they have one that's called an effortless, which I have. It's a magnetic charger, almost like the Qi charger that we have for our iPhones. You can charge these wirelessly by just setting them on, and little lights blink and let you know when it's connected and when it's charging. And it blinks green when it's connected, and then it's a solid green once it's all charged, and you just pull them off the magnet and they're ready to go. So sleep phones are ones that I definitely recommend. We have a link to them in our show notes, and you can go and learn all about where to purchase them and what kinds of models and colors and how to utilize them and things like that. So I really recommend sleep phones.
What was the cost for those?
What is that?
What was the cost for the wireless ones?
The wireless ones, it looks like, let's see what the price is now.
I'm just looking. It's
been a while since I looked at them. The wireless, there's wireless and there's effortless. So the wireless ones are $99.95. And I'm sure there's, sales and things on Amazon that you can find. And a lot of times if you subscribe to their newsletter, they'll send out coupons. So be on the lookout for those. They're always offering sales on them. But the wireless model is $99.95, and that just means that there's like a little flat gray piece that's inside, and all you do is just open up the Velcro and you just connect it with I think it's a micro USB, and it comes with it and just plugs in, and that's how you charge those. But the effortless, those are $129.95, and that's the one that I was talking about, where it's just a magnetic disc that sits down on your nightstand, and you just simply place them on top. And it's just like a little magnet that charges it. Is that inductive charging or something like that?
Yep. Cool.
And they still have the classic, the corded ones. Those are $40, and those are the ones that plug in. You can use your adapter that came with your iPhone. You can still use a plug. What I liked, though, is like I've said before, I like being able to have my iPhone plugged in and charging overnight, because I don't want it to drain. Not that it would, because it's a plus, but still, it lowers my anxiety knowing that it's charging and that I'm not going to wake up to a dead phone. And so I like to have it charged, and then I can use these wireless headphones and not have to worry about using the port at the same time. So that's what I really love about them. And they're soft, and they have different colors and different patterns. And like I said, they're washable. And I just love them. So I'll brag about them every chance I get.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
So what was the one that you recommended?
Well, of course, I have the AirPods. It's hard not to recommend those. They're pretty amazing. I mean, the sound quality is superb. They're pricey, but I mean, that's why I asked you about the price, because even if you get the one that's $129, the AirPods are not much more expensive. They're at $159. I know Apple.
Can you sleep with them though? I mean, wouldn't they fall out while you're sleeping? Would that hurt your ears after a while? It would mine.
I can't sleep with them because I worry they're going to fall out and then they fall somewhere I can't find them. So
back behind. So no,
but I agree for the application of sleeping. Yeah, no, those sleep phones are pretty awesome when it comes to that. But I mean, Apple's going to come out with some. It isn't wireless charging at the time. Now it's you have to plug it in with this lightning cable each time you want to charge it. But I know in the future that there's going to be a wireless case for that. So, but those are one of them. The other one I recommended. I recommended it because I happened to just find it last week on Amazon. Is is made by a company of MJYUN. They're truly wireless earbuds, and they have a pretty solid rating on Amazon. They're about $32, which pretty affordable. See if the price has changed since then. No, a couple of days ago I saw they had the white ones were cheaper than the black ones. So and now it looks like they have black ones now because they're probably selling like crazy. But they're small little earbuds, just similar to what the AirPods are. Noise canceling, which is interesting, and they have a microphone and a charging case. So for $36, it's not a bad deal if you're looking for some simple Bluetooth wireless headphones that are smaller earbuds. And I'm sure they have I'm pretty sure they have different size pods that you can change for the ears and all that.
Now, tell me about the AirPods. About how many hours of listening time do you get out of those AirPods? After they're charged?
You could usually get anywhere between 5 and 7 hours.
Okay. Because we were talking about another one. I'm not going to link to it because I don't really recommend them.
Yep.
I had gotten a set. I won't say what they are, but I got a set that's similar to these ones that are that we linked to. What are they called again? The ones that you just mentioned.
MJUN.
MJUN. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. I had gotten a similar pair, and I did read the review. We also linked to it from BGR. They reviewed them pretty well, but they still don't really quite answer the question I have about the quality of them. Yeah. Because what I noticed with this knockoff brand that I had gotten, now they do say in their write-up that they do have, it says allows for 2 hours of music time in a single charge, which isn't really all that much.
That isn't much.
It does say up to 5 hours of premium quality talk play time and up to 80 hours standby time. So yeah, these probably do stay charged a lot longer than the ones that I had gotten. Right. But when you're actually listening to them, they do tend to drain pretty fast. The ones that I had gotten the knockoff, so I'm telling this to our listeners to be really careful of these. You can get these, and they're definitely a much cheaper alternative to getting the official Apple AirPods, but beware that you're getting what you pay for. So we might be recommending this particular model, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not far removed from the one that I got, where you are getting what you're paying for. They don't have the length of charge time quality that the Apple AirPods do. So you kind of have to temper your expectations. Now, with the knockoff ones that I got, I have them paired to my Apple Watch, and just like we discussed earlier, I'm using it solely for the purpose of being able to listen to podcasts or music or whatever from my Apple Watch. And I'm really only ever using them for a couple of hours anyway. So the fact that they die in like 4 hours time, at first I was really kind of shocked. I was like, really? Why wouldn't they last that much longer? But then I was like, you know what? It's really not that big of a deal. I just, to rectify the situation, I just keep the thing plugged into like an outlet in my bathroom, and it has a little charger thing. Now, this one that you mentioned, these other ones have a case that they pop into and charge. Just that's like kind of like similar as the Apple AirPod models. The ones that I got just have like a little pluggy-do, and you just plug them into the bottom of each one, and you plug it that way, and they light up and they turn blue when they're charged. Yep. So to combat that, I just keep it plugged into the bathroom, and I just plug them in when they die, and I stick them back on when I'm ready to use them. But like I said, I really only need a couple of hours anyway. So my other Bluetooth that I have that I use for driving, that one has like a 7-hour charge. So that one lasts anywhere. I get a good, couple of days worth of use out of that one, because I'm just using it for trips back and forth in the car. So that's another tip that I wanted to mention, is one of the other cumbersome things about trying to listen to podcasts from your Apple Watch, although it is liberating. And like I said, it's worth the effort to invest in getting it set up. One of the other gotchas is that you have to pair a Bluetooth headset to it. And in order to do that, Bluetooth is, I don't think the future's here yet when it comes to the Bluetooth. It can be kind of persnickety, because sometimes you have to unpair it from the phone in order to get it to connect to the Apple Watch. Like sometimes it's hard to switch between the two. They don't always cooperate. So what I've decided to do is basically just keep these cheaper Bluetooth headsets around. I mean, we've inherited some from family members or people who didn't want them anymore or whatever. So we've got several of them laying around. The kids, have some, we have some. Bluetooth headsets are, the prices are coming down. So it's not uncommon to have a couple of pairs of these things floating around. So I've decided that, okay, I have this one earpiece that I'm going to use just for driving. So I kind of either keep that in my car or I keep it, in my purse or something that I take with me that goes in my car. And then I have this other little cheapy set of knockoff AirPods that, like I said, they don't last very long, but I don't really need them to last that long. And so I keep those paired to my Apple Watch.
Okay.
And then I have another set that I keep paired, like my sleep phones, they're always paired to my iPhone. The only other time I change the pairing for my sleep phones is if I pair them to the TV. But I don't even do that much anymore. Like I don't watch a lot of TV before I fall asleep because it just keeps me awake anyway. So I basically have resorted to keeping different Bluetooth devices, earpieces paired to different devices, and that saves the hassle of having to unpair and repair them. So that's just another tip. If you do happen to have a bunch of cheap versions of Bluetooth, just go ahead and just keep them designated to different devices and just make your life easier. Well, don't fight with it.
Well, one thing I will mention, of course, is the AirPods do have the automated chip built into them. So as soon as you put them in your ear, they automatically connect. And
so you don't have to go through the settings.
You don't have to go through the settings. Not normally.
That's nice.
Yeah, because it's automatically linked. I mean, I have a pair of the Beats headphones too that do the same thing because they have that same chip in them. And that's
so see, you're paying a premium for that chip, for that extra special feature.
You're right, but it's automated, which is nice. It really is.
Yeah.
But all right, so that was good information about earpieces, and let's move on. We talk about some of the apps we found. I just put the link in the show notes here for the RB Digital for if you wanted to hit on that a little bit.
I did, because I'm actually pretty impressed with this. Just before the show, I just need to put some more time into this because I like I said, I do miss looking at magazines, and the RB Digital app, I had dismissed it for the longest time because and we should specify that what's important about the RB Digital app and the reason why I'm using it is because you don't have to have a magazine subscription.
Right.
What you have to have is a library card.
Yep. And
that's the beauty of it is you can sign in, you can create an RB Digital account with your library card. And then that's how you can, quote unquote, check out or virtually check out books and magazines. And there's even comic books in here. I had dismissed this a while ago because it came out. I used it for a little while and I went to download, believe it or not, this is ironic, or maybe it's not ironic. I downloaded George Orwell's 1984 book and it just kept failing. It wouldn't install. Like it would install and it wouldn't freeze and, it just wouldn't work. But I just tried it again and it downloaded flawlessly and it was fine. There are audiobooks, there's magazines, there's ebooks. It's just a really great way to utilize the public library resources, but in a digital fashion. I just downloaded an Apple magazine, and you can download it and read it. And these are great for traveling. You basically just download them on your iPad. Now they do quote unquote expire. You can basically check them out for a limited amount of time. But
just like library.
Yeah, just like even analog in the analog world, why do you want a whole pile of magazines? I mean, unless you're a hoarder and you like to collect those things, but why do you want a pile of magazines laying around your house? You don't want a pile of magazines piling up and, taking up space on your hard drive. And, I've told you before, I like to live lean. So I usually get the 64 gigabyte model and save some dough on that. And this is a great way to be able to live lean because it doesn't take up a lot of space because you have to check them back in or they expire. And I mean, there's no book to return or anything.
Nope.
So yeah, I'm going to have to start investing some more time on this and just sit down and cuddle up with my iPad and read some magazines and get into this or read some books now. So I would definitely check it out. Go to the RB Digital website and like I said, if you don't have a public library card, go get one, and then you can use your library card to sign into the account, and then that's how you can check out books. It's connected to your local library.
And you may need to actually go to your local library's website to check to make sure that they participate, because there could be a few people are listening that their library may not participate, but I can't imagine most do, and just check it out and make sure that they participate in the program. And I think this day and age, like you said, the word analog. Not less and less people are probably going and checking things out of a library when they can go online and they'd be able to check out a book or audiobook or even the magazine for that matter. So.
Yep, we still have this as a resource, so we should utilize it. I mean, for me, it's great because I have kids and they have to do, reading outside of school and they have to take little quizzes and things like that. And so this has been great for checking out books for them when, they forgot to bring their book home or something and they still need to be able to do their assignment. So that's been really helpful. So I would check that out.
And I don't know if you want to touch a little more on Outcast. I know you talked about it pretty extensively in the wearables segment.
Yeah, I'd say, we linked to it. Go check it out. I think, is it still 99 cents? Because I purchased it. I'm not sure if but it was on sale for 99 cents. So hopefully that sale hasn't gone off.
Yep, it's still 99 cents.
All right, go grab it before the price goes up because more of us are talking about it.
Made by the company Crunchy Bagel.
Yeah, that's a great name, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and you can get to their website from the app page, and they have instructions on how to install it, and tips like we mentioned, like make sure that you're downloading over Wi-Fi as opposed to cellular, and it'll go a lot faster. And
I'm probably sure I've mentioned this app before, but I wanted to mention it again. I talked about it last week during my iPhone special interest group. Is the Apple Support app? It's pretty amazing. We had a representative from our local Apple store come in from the business team, and he gave us a little insights of what we can get out of Apple and what they're doing, all that kind of stuff. It was a great session, and we talked a little bit pretty extensively about the Apple Support app and how great it is. I mean, download the app, make sure you have it on your iPhone, your iPad. You can go in and you actually can chat with a support rep. You don't have to call them. They can get into your device. They can do tests. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, Apple's gotten.
I've used it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have, and probably you've used it with your clients too. And it's just amazing what you can do without having to go and visit the Apple Store if you have to. I know some people like to do that. I think they liked it. And that was one of the biggest complaints is the fact that I can just go online and make an appointment. That's all I want to do. I mean, well, Apple wants you to do a little bit more testing and doing some more troubleshooting before you just, bring it in. Because it does take up a lot of their time, too, if it's something simple that they could have easily fixed, via the support app. So I would highly recommend it. We have a link in the show notes to that as well. So, and you want to hit on Twitterrific a little bit?
I think that was one that you had put there.
Oh, was it? I thought it was you. I'm sorry. Twitterrific I put on here too. If everybody doesn't know, if you use Twitter for social media, Twitter actually discontinued the Mac app, and that's what kind of influenced me to take a look at Twitterrific again. They did lower the price. I believe it's free plus in-app purchases for iOS, and I believe they cut it down to $6.99 for a Mac, and it used to be $19.99. If you want in-app purchases, which removes ads and ads push notifications, it's only $5. And if you're a heavy user of Twitter, I highly recommend it because it does go through and gives you a lot more easier ways of finding things. And I find Twitter to be a place where you can just you don't want to be out there actually tweeting stuff, but we want you to follow us on Twitter, of course, in touch with iOS. Shameless plug. But I find that the Twitter is a place where you can just be a lurker. You can just be reading things and finding out what's going on, and you don't have to be active with it. So that's what's great about Twitter. It's very, you can go one way or the other. When it comes to that.
Twitterrific makes it easier on your eyes. I used to use it a lot when I was really using Twitter a lot more. I've started to use Twitter more recently. Yeah. It comes in waves. Like there's times when you just spend a lot of time on Twitter, and there's times when you just don't have time to spend on it. But Twitterrific is one of those apps that it makes the experience a lot more customizable. It's easier on the eyes. You can use, I think there's a dark mode, a light mode, things like that. And you can manage your lists easier. You can filter things a lot easier. It just makes it easier to navigate Twitter. Whereas the basic app is kind of basic.
Yeah. The basic app's gotten a little better. They did add dark. It has. They added the dark and light.
They have
in the new one. So, and you wanted to talk a little bit about App Advice. I've used these guys for a long time. They've quite evolved lately. It's a website as well as an app.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting a little like candy, like getting a little treat or something. I do like the little notification that comes on my Apple Watch. I like it. I go and I check my phone. It's just one of those things where it's not the news and it's not, something depressing. It's just a happy little update, and you go and you read about the apps that are on sale. They do really nice reviews. They're very kind of simple and to the point. Like, what is the app? What is it? Who's it for? Why did they pick it? And then they give some ratings, and then you just tap on it if you're interested on it, and it takes you to the App Store where you can then just use your fingerprint to download it and buy it. And like I said, they've gone on sale, so most of the time they're free. And sometimes, occasionally, I have seen where I've gone to look at it and oh darn it, the sale expired. Right. So but one time I forget which app it was, but one time I was like, oh, it looks so great, and I bought it anyway, even though it wasn't on sale anymore. So that can happen.
Yep. So, and one thing I wanted to mention too is I'm pretty excited. I got us listed on TuneIn Radio. TuneIn, which was pretty exciting. I did try to do it because TuneIn does have support with Amazon Echo, but it currently is not working. I'd have an email sent to them to see if that potentially might have to pay for that. I'm not sure. Okay. But you can find us on TuneIn Radio. If you listen on TuneIn, you can subscribe to us on TuneIn. We put a link in the show notes so you can get out to there as well. And that's another way of being able to listen to us. And a lot of podcasters are out there, and you find a lot of other podcasts out there as well. So I'm pretty excited about that. Anything else you wanted to bring up before we wrap this up?
No, I'm actually excited to wrap this up because I put a little extra something in our outro there. So I think we should wrap it up and go ahead and get to that.
I better check this before I start reading here. Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate you listening. Thanks for listening, and we hope you're more in touch with iOS after hearing this episode. Subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcatcher, or ask us by name by using your favorite smart speaker. Well, not yet.
There you go.
Show your friends how to find us on Apple Podcasts, on the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher Radio. And again, like I just mentioned, we're on TuneIn. We look forward to bringing you more useful information in future episodes. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can follow me on Twitter at DaveG65.
And I'm Melissa Davis, and you can find me online all over at the Mac Mommy.
Stay tuned and subscribe for future episodes, and thanks for listening.